It's been a little bit, but I'm back. I got a brand new microphone and a brand new show. No, it's not a new show. I'm still talking boxing, still doing it for one round or more. Let's get into that intro right now. Ever since I was a kid and saw Sugar Ray Leonard fight, I've loved boxing. I was at HBO for 15 years as a feature producer, won a few sports Emmys. Not bad. I got to travel the world and tell the great stories of these fighters.
Maybe something of a rooting interest in Alexander among the entire HBO Sports crew here, because Alexander's manager is former HBO Sports producer George Jacobic.
I've managed a fighter, I've worked a fighter's corner, being as close to the action as you can get. My life has revolved around boxing. June has historically been one of boxing's biggest months. Many of the biggest fights in history have taken place in June. 2022 was no exception. Let's get into the June recap. June 4th in Australia, George Kambosos was defending his lightweight title against Devin Haney. There was a lot of talk back and forth. George Kambosos called Devin Haney a rat. George Kambosos fought like a mouse. He was outboxed, he was outfought, and Devin Haney is the man at 135 pounds in one of boxing's deepest divisions. Just a few days later, June 7th in Japan, it was a rare morning fight for us on the East Coast. It was the monster INOUE and Nonito Donaire. They had a rematch of their great fight from 2019. Donaire lost a decision in that great fight, but this one was all the monster. He dropped Donaire at the end of the first round and stopped him in the second to retain his bantamweight title. Donaire is a Hall of Fame fighter, and he did things at this age in his weight class that have never been done before, but he was beaten by the better fighter. June 18th was one of my most anticipated fights. It was the light heavyweight unification matchup in New York between Artur Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr. A lot of people, including me, thought this was going to be a Hagler-Hearns type of fight. It was a one-sided beatdown. Artur Beterbiev dropped Smith at the end of the first round, stopped him in the second. Joe Smith had never been stopped, had never been down in his pro career. So that shows you the kind of fighter Artur Beterbiev is. I think he's the best light heavyweight on the planet. I hope the politics of boxing don't keep Beterbiev from fighting Dmitry Bivol to unify the light heavyweight title. June 25th, 22-year-old Jesse Bam Rodriguez, the junior bantamweight champ, looks sensational, picking apart and stopping Sor Rungvisai. Rodriguez looks like he's gonna have a special career, and he's only 22 years old, and it reminded me of the great Hall of Famer Wilfred Benitez. 41 years ago, Wilfred Benitez knocked out Maurice Hope to become the junior middleweight champion at age 22. Not only became the junior middleweight champion, he was a 3-division champion, all by that young age. He had a Hall of Fame career. We remember you, the great Wilfred Benitez. And speaking about famous June fights throughout the history of boxing, there's so many, there's way too many to name here, but some that stand out to me. June 9th, 1978, Ken Norton defended his heavyweight title against Larry Holmes, one of the best 15-round fights you'll ever see, including a historic 15th round. Larry Holmes won a split decision, went on to become one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time, and that was 44 years ago. June 15th, 1984, two legends were in the ring in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thomas the Hitman Hearns and Roberto Duran squared off for supremacy at 154 pounds, and this was the most vicious knockout of Thomas Hearns' legendary career. He dropped Roberto Duran, finally stopped him with one shot. This had never been done to Duran before. This was the biggest knockout in Tommy Hearns' career. June 20th, 1980, my man Sugar Ray Leonard was in one of history's greatest fights, the brawl in Montreal against Roberto Duran. They went back and forth for 15 rounds. Roberto Duran won a close decision and became the new welterweight champion of the world. It's crazy that that fight was 42 years ago. And going way back, June 22nd, 1938, the Brown Bomber, the all-time great Joe Louis, knocked out Max Schmeling in one round in Yankee Stadium to become what he still is today, a national icon and a national hero. 1938. But for all the amazing fights in June, one that I remember most is one that I saw back in 1988. Mike Tyson, just a few years before, had become the youngest heavyweight champion in history. He had all the belts. The only man he hadn't beaten was the lineal champ, Michael Spinks. They stepped into a ring June 27th, 1988. 90 seconds later, Mike Tyson came out as the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. That first round knockout was the highlight of Mike Tyson's career. I remember that fight in Atlantic City like it was yesterday. And also, happy birthday to Mike Tyson. He just turned 56 years old. And finally, a couple of weeks ago, there was a social media clip that was making the rounds, and it's a warning to all the tough guys out there. You never know who you're gonna run into when you're mad. Like this guy who made the mistake of getting aggressive with former heavyweight contender Julius Francis. Take a minute to think before you act. That's my time. It is so good to be back, and I'll see you next week with another edition of One Round with George. That exhilarating one round with me is over. Now you can go to my YouTube page. You can like the content, you can subscribe to the page, and there is more coming soon.